What's going on, gamers? It's your boy Diggs Gaming. Welcome back to Off Hunting's Gaming News. And tonight, I got a lot of good stuff to talk about, and I'm going to start things off with Gamescom. So last week, I was talking about Gamescom and some of the stuff that we are going to see that has been talked about, like Microsoft having their own booth. We're going to see Sonic Frontiers. We're going to see Return to Monkey Island. Well, now we got some more games that are going to be shown off. So the Callisto Protocol, Hogwarts Legacy, and DLC for Dying Light 2 called Bloody Ties is also going to be showing off at Gamescom. Remember, it's this Tuesday at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And I just want to emphasize this. I would have toned down expectations for everybody because while this looks good on the surface, we don't know what else is in store. And with Jeff Keighley's track record of hyping things up and it being very disappointing, I would just tone down the expectations. Just expect it to be like every other event that he has hosted, where it's a lot of smaller games. And while there are some bigger games here, like I mentioned with Callisto Protocol and Hogwarts Legacy and a few others, I still would expect a lot of indie, smaller titles to be shown off and a lot of games that maybe we haven't heard of before, but there could definitely be a surprise or two. Jeff Keighley has said that. And I mean, last year we got our first look at Elden Ring. So clearly, when he says he has big surprises, it means there is something there, but I just don't know what he means by that. So let's see what happens. I would just have toned down expectations, but still, like I said, with what we know so far, there are some good games to be showing off. We just don't know how this whole thing's going to be. I mean, part of the problem with the last few showcases of his has been kind of the pacing. Pacing's been a little off. So hopefully that will be a little bit improved here, but I would still just still have these toned down expectations. That's all I'm going to say on Gamescom, and we'll see what gets shown off. Maybe we do get some pretty good surprises there. Moving on, last week I talked about Spider-Man PS4 remastered PC version that was released to not only great reviews, but to high numbers of players playing it. And of course, now we're starting to see some mods for it. And there are some very interesting mods where they're replacing Spider-Man with some interesting characters. Now, the weirdest one that I found out was somebody had replaced Spider-Man, well, Peter Parker, with Uncle Ben's gravestone. Like, what? Okay, that's a little strange. Interesting, but strange. And also another one replaced Peter Parker with Kingpin. Now, that's an interesting one because now you're seeing a very big guy doing all the things that you can do as Spider-Man in the game. That's pretty interesting to take a look at. And one thing about Kingpin that I don't know how many people realize, he is a very low percentage body fat. It's mostly muscle, all of his body mass. That's pretty much what it is in the comics. In the comics, he has like 2% body fat. So I don't know how many people actually realize that or remember that about Kingpin, that a lot of his mass is muscle, not fat. But this is the coolest one. You get to play as Stan Lee in one of these mods. And I absolutely love that because without Stan Lee, I don't know what this world would look like. Not just the world of comics, but the world itself, because Stan Lee is just one of the greatest human beings ever. And this is just someone that loved what they were doing, was great at it, and was a great person. And he basically became an icon. I mean, Stanley's legacy is probably never going to be forgotten because of what he did in his life and all the great characters that he made, all of just the great features with him, just him as a person. And it is sad that he is no longer with us, but his impact on this world is never going to be forgotten. At least I think it won't be. I really don't. Now, we talked about some good things. Let's talk about something that's not so good. Another modder actually got banned after having a mod that removed the pride flags in the game and replacing them with the American flag. Now, I know what some people are going to say. This is political correctness. Why would they do this? Well, I mean, it's something that it had to happen. I mean, this is just something that is not borderline. It is entirely insensitive. And it just gives the wrong message to remove the pride flags and they replace them with the American flags, it definitely sends the wrong message. I like that they took a stand on this and that this modder actually did have some consequences for doing this because, you know, some things you just shouldn't do. And this is something that should not have been done. I'm sorry. This just should not have been done. I, I don't care what people are going to say. This just never should have happened. And yeah, I think it was the right move to ban this modder. That's what I'm going to say on that. Moving on, Disney has announced that there is going to be a Disney and Marvel game showcase September 9th at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, this is very interesting because we're talking the whole company of Disney. We're talking, of course, the Disney characters, Pixar, Marvel, it's right there in the name, 20th Century, Lucasfilm, and whatever else Disney owns. I don't even know all of them off the top of my head. So there's a lot of things that we could see at this showcase. A few things that come to mind is Amy Hennigan's Marvel game, Disney Dreamlight Valley, Marvel Midnight Suns. Of course, you have your Star Wars games. We could see Star Wars Jedi Survival. We could see Ubisoft's massive Star Wars game, the Avatar game that's in the works. There's a lot of games that we could see at the showcase, games that we don't even know exist right now. I think the two big ones that are on everybody's mind is if we're going to see Spider-Man 2 and Wolverine. That's the interesting one right there. Well, those two are the interesting ones. And I think it's more like we're going to see Spider-Man 2 than we're going to see Wolverine because Spider-Man 2, that's supposed to be coming out next year. And I know a lot of people are saying it's going to get delayed till 2024. I don't believe that because you look at Insomniac's track record with this generation, their games are coming out on time and they're coming out amazing. So I trust Insomniac to get this game out next year. And Wolverine's not due until 2024. So I don't know if we're going to see Wolverine at this, but we could definitely see Spider-Man 2. And one thing that would be interesting, if we do see Spider-Man 2, this might give us an idea on if Sony is going to have their own showcase in September and when it's going to be in September, because this is on September 9th. And Sony typically has their showcases on a Thursday. That's how it's been for a while now. Their showcases, their state of plays have been on Thursday. If they were to do a showcase either the week before or even the day before, they could mention this in a Spider-Man 2 trailer, like look for more information at the DisneyMarvel Showcase. That could definitely happen, but the question is, will it? We just don't know when Sony is going to have their showcase or if they're going to have their showcase. There's still a possibility they might not have a showcase this year. We're all just assuming that they're going to have a big showcase this year, and we're not entirely sure. But back to the Disney Marvel Showcase. Sorry, I went on a little bit of a tangent, but I'm definitely excited for this because, like I said, there's a lot that could be shown off. And really, a lot of people are going to be tuning into this because there is going to be something for everybody there. Because, like I said, with all the stuff that Disney owns, there is something here for someone to just be excited for. And I can't wait to see what they have to show off. Moving on, speaking of Sony, they've actually teamed up with a new studio called Ballistic Moon, which is made up of former supermassive game developers that made Until Dawn. And they're working with Sony on the Unreal Engine 5 for a PlayStation 5 game. Yeah, this is something that does not shock me. This is classic Sony written all over it. Them helping a new studio with a game and can be PlayStation exclusive. That's what it looks like. I mean, they've done this so many times from the beginning to even this generation with Ember Labs. They're helping out with them. They helped out with Housemark and Returnal. They just know what they are doing when they help out these studios. Haven Studios, which they just bought before we even know what the game is going to look like that they're working on. So this does not shock me. This is classic Sony doing stuff like this. And I'm really interested to see what this studio is working on and how this game is going to look. Again, it's being made in the Unreal 5 engine. Moving on, in a strange news story, Death Stranding, a PlayStation-owned IP and a PlayStation console exclusive, is actually getting put on Game Pass PC, which shocks a lot of people because, again, this is a PlayStation-owned IP. Yeah, PlayStation themselves didn't make it. That was Kojima Productions, but they own the IP. And the more you dig into the story, the more you realize PlayStation really had no say in this. And this is kind of a loophole that the owners of the PC version of the game were able to figure out. So the PC version was done by 505 Studio. And looks like Microsoft made a deal with them to put the game on Game Pass PC. And yeah, Sony's not happy about that. They are not. And this is probably the last game that we're going to see that's going to be put on Game Pass at all. I mean, we saw with the MLB, the show, which was done by the MLB. The MLB wanted that game everywhere because, well, it was the best baseball game. It pretty much had blown everybody else out of the water. So they wanted to get more of an audience for that game. Sony obliged, didn't really have a choice, or else they would not have gotten that contract renewed. But this was just done very sneakily by the company that made the PC version of the game. And yeah, Sony's not happy with it. And I really don't blame them because they basically got cheated out of this. Again, it's their IP. And now it's being put on Game Pass PC. So yeah, that is pretty interesting. Moving on, Microsoft has finally admitted something that we knew for a long time, that the Xbox One sales were half of the PlayStation 4's. Now, again, we knew about this for a long time, but they stopped officially releasing sales numbers a long time ago. So it was never official. Well, now it is official. And again, nobody's shocked by this. Everybody knew this. But it really did go to show how much of a step Microsoft took back after the very, very successful Xbox 360. And everything that they did wrong at the beginning of that generation really hurt them for the entire thing. And it really was hard for them to just get out of it. I mean, they basically got beat by the PlayStation 4 right away. Moving on, EA actually made a big mistake with FIFA. So the Ultimate Edition of the game was accidentally sold for the equivalent of 6 American cents on the Indian store. And yeah, that is not good because that game is worth $100. That game costs $100 and they were accidentally selling it for 6 cents. But the crazy part is that EA found out about the mistake. They quickly fixed it. But those that took advantage of that deal got to keep the game and did not have to pay the difference. EA honored the price, which I am shocked by, because if this was a few years ago, EA would have just billed everybody that bought the game for that amount and just had them pay the difference. But they didn't do that. They allowed gamers to keep the game with the low value that they bought it at. I think that's really good for EA to do that because they made the mistake and gamers just happened to take advantage of it. Now, it wasn't up for that long. I just want to specify it wasn't up for that long, but there were gamers that did take advantage of it because, well, why not? Moving on, the director of the Ghost of Tsushima movie has stated that they want to film this movie in Japanese with an all Japanese cast. And yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense because this is based off an actual event. This game is based off an actual event that happened in history. Why not? I mean, first of all, definitely have an all Japanese cast. And you want to film this in Japanese, that makes a whole lot of sense rather than deciding to film this in English or any other language. I'm all for that. I am all for that. And while it might turn some people off on the movie, I think it will make for a more authentic experience. And there are going to be a lot of people that will still want to see this movie if it's really good. I definitely like this approach, and I really do hope that this does happen. Next up, we just got word that another PlayStation IP is being made into a movie, and this one is Days Gone. Now, Days Gone, kind of tragic what happened. Game releases sold a lot of copies, but the critical response wasn't as high as some other PlayStation titles, and Sony may or may not deem this game as a failure, and that's why it did not get a sequel to the game. And a lot of people were not happy that it did not get a sequel to it. But now it's being made into a movie. And the more I think about it, the more I think this could be a very interesting and well thought out movie if they do it right. Again, it's got to be done right. But yeah, I could definitely see this being made into a very good movie. I mean, it's got a lot of elements that you would see in a good movie. So maybe this does work out, maybe it doesn't. We don't know, but this one actually does not surprise me that they decided to make this one into a movie. It could work. Next up, a new Avatar, The Last Airbender game was actually spotted on Amazon coming out for the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. So the game is called Avatar The Last Airbender Quest for Balance, and it's said to have a release date of November 8th, which is actually the same day as Ubisoft's Skull and Bone is supposed to be released. And it's the day before God of War Ragnarok is going to get released. But again, this showed up on Amazon. So it looks like we have a new Avatar game coming out. And we already knew about a mobile game coming out, but this is an actual RPG game for consoles. And that's pretty interesting. Now, this takes place during Aang's era. So we suppose, I'm guessing we would take control of Aang. This is pretty interesting. I grew up with Avatar The Last Airbender. It is one of my favorite cartoons of all time. Really, it's one of my favorite shows of all time. And it could work as a game, but it definitely has to be done right. But the release date, that's just setting it up for failure if that's the case. Next up, Embracer Group has released a financial report. And in that report, they have stated one of the group's AAA projects has transitioned to another studio within the group. This was done to ensure the quality bar is where we need to be for the title. We are not expecting any material delays for the title based on this transition. Now, a AAA project has been moved from one studio to another, and people have put together that it's the Knights of the Old Republic remake. It's been taken out of Aspire's hands, and it looks like it's been placed into the hands of Saber Interactive. And this shocks absolutely nobody after the reports that came out that the game was on indefinite hiatus after I think it was a demo that was shown off to, I think it was both Sony and Lucasfilm, and it did not go well at all. And that led to two of the game's directors being fired. This, again, it does not shock anybody if this is the case. But the interesting part is they are not expecting any material delays because we got another report that was stating that, I think it was Jason Schreier that reported that this game would not be released until at the earliest 2025. So I don't know exactly what they're expecting here, and I don't know what exactly to expect anymore with this game. As we know, as it stands, it's still PlayStation exclusive coming at launch, but now it's really confusing as to when we're actually going to see this game come out or when we're going to see any more of this game. But putting it in the hands of Saber Interactive after what happened with the demo with Aspire, yeah, that's probably the right move by the Embracer Group, and we'll see what happens. Also with Embracer Group, they are on the buying spree again. They bought Limited Run, which is basically a company that sells physical versions of video games. They have a lot of good stuff on there. I've never bought from Limited Run personally, but I have seen some of the stuff that they have sold, and it is pretty interesting. They bought Saintrix, Tuxedo Labs, Tripwire, and the big one is Middle Earth Studios. So now they have their hands on the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit IPs, and they could do a lot with that. So Embracer Group really expanding their company again. And Embracer Group does not just have video game companies; they have companies in basically everything at this point. I mean, believe it's movies. Think they had Dark Horse Comics, so they have that. They just have a lot of different companies now. I mean, it's ridiculous just how much. If you take a look at what the Embracer Group owns, it is a lot. It really is, and I can't wait to see what Embracer Group does with all the stuff that they have and what comes out of that. So, I mean, Embracer Group again, and they're probably not going to be done buying anytime soon. And the last news story for the night, Gotham Knights and A Plague Tale Requiem have officially gone gold. They are ready to be shipped out, no delays, coming out on time. A Plague Tale Requiem, yeah, a lot of people are very excited about this game and are probably very happy to hear that it's going to be coming out on time. And Gotham Knights, I know I rag on that game a lot, but I do hope it does well. But after some of the things that I've seen with it and some of the decisions that was made in this game, I'm not entirely sure. And this is just one where I'm definitely waiting to see what people say about this game. And that is everything I have for tonight. As always, I am Diggs Gaming, and I will see you guys next time.